Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Lacy Johnson podcast again. Hey, last week our guest was Matt Burke. Matt is a six-time All-Pro NFL lineman. Matt might be in the Hall of Fame. A Harvard graduate, went on and achieved success in other areas with special interest in education, and now he's running for lieutenant governor of Minnesota. So that's one success story we talked about last week, an achievement last week. Uh, and I'm just a believer in diversity. This week, our guest is Mr. Ramon Nicholson, and I'll bring Ramon on here shortly. And Ramon contacted me, I think it was, and we met for a cup of coffee at the Corner Coffee. I just remember that. And we chat for a while, and he told me a story. And Ramon had been falsely imprisoned for 15 years, but I contrasted that experience with Ramon's personality, his attitude, and everything. And I was just amazed that someone who had been through what he'd been through were able to recover from it, for lack of a better word, and go on and live his life with a positive attitude and achieve the American dream, quote unquote. So we'll be talking to him shortly. But what I want to talk about first, though, is that once again, Ramon is from the inner city. We have diverse guests on here. We welcome diverse opinions and attitudes. We welcome diversity any way you want to slice it. And I tell people, and a lot of my friends and people who know me have an issue with this because we live in a highly partisan world nowadays, especially in this country. I don't know what it's like in the rest of the world. But I'm like this. Look, as long as you're not breaking the law, you're free to do whatever you want to do. And I'm going to root for your freedom and everybody's freedom, just like I root for my freedom. And on a practical term, that means you can have any ideas you want. I don't think it's our role to censor or cancel people because of their ideas. It reminds me of the 1984 novel by George Orwell, the novel 1984 by George Orwell, where they have a minister of truth who's around censoring and determining what's truth. We don't want that. We want just a marketplace free of ideas, free of personalities, and where I really lose a lot of my friends because I don't really believe in hate speech and love speech and all that stuff. Speech is speech. And I don't think we should have hate crimes. I'm just being honest. No more than we should have love crime. Or if we have hate crime, we should have love crime. The point of it is that we should celebrate other people's freedom as well as our own. And it's very dangerous where we are today. Someone was just telling me this morning that they were picketing a writer at the University of Wisconsin yesterday because I think it's either a book or a novel. I was just learning this morning called What is a Woman? And can you believe it? Look, you guys know I'm old school. I never thought I'd live long enough where it would even be a question of what a woman is. This is just crazy where we're at right now. And the funny part of it is, I guess it's about, I think it's a movie. He's just going around asking people, what is a woman? Of course, here in America, it's just crazy. And I think someone asked that of the Supreme Court justice too. People can't define what a woman is. Can you believe that? Well, anyway, he does that in America and nobody seems to want to answer. And then he go to other parts of the country and everybody know what a woman is. So people, we are in trouble, I think, as a country, as a people, when something as simple as what is a woman, people can't answer that. Well, they can't answer. They don't want to answer for political reasons. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. I've taken up enough of your time. Let me get my guest on here. Hey, Ramon, how you doing? Yeah, well, good to see you. I told people how we met and how I was very caught with your experience and your attitude. I mean, he was always smiling. I never knew he had been through what he'd been through. So we're going to talk about what you've been through, Ramon. And that's going to lead us into a discussion of the criminal justice system. And we're going to let you tell your story and what happened to you, some of the things that we can do to improve the system, and we'll just go from there. Now, you and I don't always see eye to eye on things, and that's good. Iron sharpens iron, and you don't want to hang. If you're hanging around people that agree all the time with you, you need to broaden your circle. You need people to push back on your ideas. You need someone to challenge what you're saying. And unfortunately, I see it in my family. Most of the people they aren't around people. They're around people who think like them and agree with them. And sadly, once again, this age, the younger generation, they don't want to hear people who disagree with them. And that's the sadness of it all. Okay, so Ramon, tell our audience a little bit about yourself. I know you're from Toledo. I know it was kind of tough growing up there. I've been to Toledo, and I went there with you, and you could see the Rust Belt kind of effect there. You could see the politics of the country where it seems like nobody care about the people in the middle of the country. It's just all East Coast, West Coast, and it's kind of sad there. So you grew up in. Let's start there. Uh, you're from Toledo. Grew up there. Okay, tell us what it was like growing up in Toledo, and then tell us how your encounter with the court system that led to your false imprisonment. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Toledo was like any other inner city, where people don't, people's broke, people struggling, doing what you got to do to live. And that was, my family was no exception. My mom, uh, she did what she had to do, to provide for us. And, of course, it wasn't always legal. So, she got herself in trouble and had went to prison. And when she went to prison, they don't send your kids to prison with you, you know. So me and my sisters and brothers were taken away and put in foster homes. And the last time I was living with my mother, I was about 6 years old, and they took us away, and they took us to the foster child services place, and they split us up. I guess that's the way it had to work. So my sisters went to one foster home, and I went to another. And we were all basically split up. And from 6 until I was 17, I was in different foster homes, And some foster homes is okay. Some, the people know damn well they shouldn't be foster parents. I don't even know how they accept, they should have left me with my mama if they was going to send me with some of them people. And I was, when you live in foster homes, that mess with your mental, because you're not like other kids. You don't have a stable home. These people are not your parents, so you're not, you don't feel treated the same. You you just, it just really makes you feel different. When parent teachers conference and things like that come around, there is no parents that's coming for you. So it shapes you. You act different. Because you're not like the other kids. That's how I felt. You know, so.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I could never concentrate in school. I was switching schools so much. Each foster home, you had a new school, starting all over again, making friends, trying to do all this. It's a difficult childhood, and but as I got older, like 15, 16, if I wasn't in a good foster home, I just ran away. At that point, they can't keep me there, so I would run away, and I ran away from a foster home uh, right be, before I was well, right before I was 18, and I ran away, and I was just living house to house, at this person's house for some days, at this person's house, doing whatever I had to do to, to get by. It's hard out there living on the street by yourself, so but I had some decent friends, and they parents wouldn't mind me coming over to stay, because I wasn't a bad kid, I just didn't have anywhere to go. So I was staying with my one friend, Mike, and I would just stand there for a couple of days, and I would go on to the next house, and I was staying at his house one night, and I went to leave, and as I was leaving, I got a little far away, and the police pulled up on me and asked me if they could talk to me, and at that point I didn't do nothing, so I didn't have a problem with talking to them, and they asked me where I was at the night before, and I really didn't have a problem because I knew for sure I had somebody knew where I was at. So they take me downtown, and they started talking to me and asking me you know exactly where I was at, and I was telling them, and then they just started telling me that, hey, you were the guy that was shooting at the police the other night, and at the beginning of it, I didn't take it as serious, because like I said, I didn't know. So I thought, they could say whatever, it's like I got proof. So, I wasn't really worried as I should have been, I didn't, by
Mm-hmm.
the so the police will they will keep you and interrogate you, and you know and they will have you thinking, if you just tell us the truth, you can go, and that, and at that, they had wore me down to that point, to where I really thought, they was gonna let me go, especially after the person whose house I was at was also a police officer, but for whatever reason, I still haven't found out to this day. For whatever reason, they focused in so hard on me. It's like once they said that I did it, that was literally it. Like it was. I mean, and there was nobody to come to my defense. So it was like I was an easy target. There was nobody, that cared enough to be able to say, hey, there was nobody. I had a public defender. And he even came in. He didn't come in and say, hey man, tell me what happened. He came in and said, well, I'm gonna get you the less time as possible. I'm gonna try to get you this 40 years. And I was thinking, wow,
40 years?
40. That was the,
He's going to try to get you, he's going to do you a favor and get you 40 years.
yes. And that was it. And
And this,
that was a favor, literally, like 40
right,
years.
right, right.
And I thought, wow, 40 years, well, what's the worst? And he said 90. And I said, to me, there's no difference at this point,
I was asking you
the
what your
charges.
charges and what they were, but those don't sound like charges that will get you 90 years anyway, unless you take
Well,
into consideration it was police officer we're talking
right,
about.
and that's why anything that's against the police, they go up the charges, to the max.
Right. Okay.
So,
Okay. So they.
and the only witnesses was the police.
Oh, okay. So my summation of the situation is that someone shot at the police. They wanted to get someone for doing it, and it didn't matter who it was. They just wanted to pick up someone off
Somebody,
somebody. Yeah, and you just so happen to be that somebody in the proverbial wrong place at the wrong time.
right?
Now, just quickly, I'm skipping ahead quite a bit here, but we'll come back. Did they ever find out who really did it?
No, I don't even think they actually cared at that,
Okay,
at
okay,
that
okay.
point.
Okay, so we left off in public defenders, man. Jeez, people. You know,
Yeah.
they have stopped teaching civics and the Constitution and things in schools nowadays. Uh, but the system is so stacked against the average person,
Oh yeah, you
especially
cannot win.
yeah, especially if you're poor.
Right.
And we'll get into that and a person of color. We'll get into that on the second half of our interview when we start talking solutions. But the system is so corrupt. And the sad part about it, and I talk about that too, when I talk to people in the system, they think everything is fine. And the sad part about it, this is coming from defense attorneys. And I
It's
tell
not the
everybody if
actual, but see, that's the thing. It's not the actual system. It's the people that's running the
right,
system. The
right. Oh, I
system
agree.
works just fine, right? The law is great. It is. It's the people who's enforcing it, and the people that's prosecuting it. They are the ones that make it bad because they take shortcuts, or because they're not. They don't. They looking at how to advance their career.
Right,
You
right,
know.
right. right. And
So
and
that's what
unfortunately,
makes it
yeah,
bad.
unfortunately, there's a lot of people associated with the criminal justice system that really other people's lives that's not as important as their own career and their family and things like that. And it's just kind of sad we got people out there involved. Okay, so uh, they arrest you for assaulting two police officers. Your public defender comes in, and right away he starts talking to you about a plea deal that he'll do you a favor, get you a plea deal where you only have to serve 40 years. That's ridiculous. So take it from there, Ramon, and what happened from there?
Well, of course, I was upset with him. Nobody want to hear that, you know. So
Uh-huh.
I was upset with him, and you got the guys who was in the county jail with me. You know, they been there, they understand, and they was telling me, you know, that hey, that's the best thing you can do, because these people, because you the guy, you going to prison. You know, even though I didn't want to hear that, you know, they was just telling
Mm-hmm.
me the harsh realities. Like, look, you know, you ain't got no lawyer, nobody backing you. You going. The best thing you can do for yourself is get the less time, you know. And I was like, what? You know, and people knew who my public defender was. They knew that he wasn't shit, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
they was, you know, telling me they best advice. And for some reason I thought that nah man, you know, justice is go win. I ain't, you know, they ain't gonna do that to me. And it happened. They did it to me. They convicted me. And I was, you know, I was broken because I thought, you know, how what? You know, how so when do I remember I asked the judge, I said, so when do I get out? and and he said, this is no joking. It was a bailiff in there, and the bailiff said, he said, young man, you got a lot of laps to walk on the yard. And I didn't know what he was talking about at the time, but once I got to prison, I totally understood, you know. But that's, you know, I of course I was broken and upset, you know, but I still believe that the truth wins. The only thing is sometimes it takes a while, you
Right.
know, because you can, you know, people, you know, you can bury the truth, you know,
Yeah.
and if you
Well,
don't dig for it,
yeah,
you
you bring
know,
up an important point that I've been making to people over the years. Most of these young black males out there don't have a support system
no,
uh, to to fight the system, and I think that's a big reason why a lot of them fall victims. And I'm not going to get too broad on this, but another, and we've talked about this, and we'll talk about it a little more. Another reason where two parent families are so important, I think, along the way. Uh, and I do know from my personal experience, and you know, I grew up in the hoods, quote unquote, in Minnesota, Minneapolis, and our younger son, our older son, for some reason, he'd get stopped a lot, and every once in a while he'd get on the phone and call us while he's there being stopped. In fact, we told him every time you get stopped, every time you look like you get stopped, call us first. Call us, get us on the phone, so you have someone there. But the point I'm trying to make is we could tell as soon as the police officers knew he had two parents behind him and that's going to back him up, their whole demeanor changed.
of
And
course,
that's what, yeah, that whole demeanor changed.
if you have
What's
some those young
uh-huh.
guys you were just talking about, if they have support, they wouldn't be in the trouble in the first place, you know.
And that's why it's so important that we have strong families because that's your first line of support, I think.
It
And like,
is,
and my wife is pretty tough too. She's soft spoken, but once they hear what we're saying and where we're coming from, like I said, the whole demeanor of the police officer changed. Up until the end, they were this is me. They were just assuming my son was just another thug out there selling drugs. In fact, they asked him a couple of times about it. And once again, so that is important, and people can talk about all the reforms they want until we start providing backup and support for our young men there. They can just railroad you off, assembly line type of thing. And I'd like to see us get that done. Anyway, so you've been arrested. You're in jail. You've been convicted. They're sending you off to prison, and being kind of new to this whole thing and kind of naive, I think, in a way, and knowing you hadn't done anything. You're like, when am I going to get out? And one of the bailiffs looks at you and say, you got a lot of walks around the yard or whatever. And so they put you on a bus, I'm assuming, and they
Yeah,
haul you off to the prison.
they put you on a bus and they haul you to prison, right?
Uh-huh.
And this is from the time I got on that bus until the time I got out, it was a hell of a learning experience because I remember when we first got to prison, when we first got there, they let you off the bus. They make all y'all get naked, just some humiliating type shit, but they got to check you and all that, right? And it was mostly all of us was black. Maybe been a couple white dudes, right? And I remember this white officer said, "You fucking nigger." And I thought when he said that the whole line was about to go crazy, like niggas is about to go wild. Now the nigga said nothing. Nobody moved or nothing. And I knew right then and there. I said, wait a minute. Ain't nobody mad or nothing. Nobody's yelling, nothing. And that told me right then, clear as day. Well, don't let words bother you because this ain't the place, nobody stepped out of line or got mad. That mean that N-word don't carry as much weight as I thought because nobody did nothing. And the reason they didn't is because, of course, they knew that they couldn't. They would be, back then the COs would kill you. They'll harm you a whole lot, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can tell yourself then that I ain't doing nothing, because you can let the word not bother you.
Right.
It only has meaning when you want it to. Other than that,
Right.
you can say whatever you want. I don't care. I could call you names right back. It does not have to come to fist fighting, shooting, nothing over words. Literally, that's
Right.
only a choice that we
Right.
make. We
I
make.
agree. I agree.
So if you can make that choice to not let it bother you in that circumstance, you can also make the choice to let the word not bother you ever.
Right.
And that's what I did. So I
Yeah.
learned my first couple of hours at prison, and while I was there, prison is a crazy place. A lot of crazy stuff, a lot of situations take place in prison. It's all criminals, So I've seen a whole lot. I was there a while.
Now, you get into prison. Do you have anyone? Well, no. I'm gonna ask it like this, and you can clarify in your answers. Who on the outside knew about your situation and was looking after you and was going to stay in
Nobody.
touch with you?
Nobody.
Wow.
Not a
So,
letter, not a
right.
phone call, not a nothing.
No one visited you.
Well, my mom, when she was alive, she never came and visit me because she was too far and she didn't have the money, but she did right.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Well, let's get back to too far because, as I understand it, there's a state prison in Ohio. I think it's called Lucas, if I remember correctly.
Lucasville, boy, that's a hell of a spot.
Lucasville. Okay. Tell us a little bit about Lucasville and its reputation.
Yeah, Lucasville was probably one of the worst, if probably the worst prison they could send you to in Ohio, at the time. If you was in there for any serious crime, that's exactly where you were going. And it would literally, like, I'm not joking, it would literally, grown men would get their classification papers and say where they were going or the prison. And you knew the people who was going to Lucasville because you could just see the sadness. I mean, you're already in prison, but you would see the sadness in their face, like, oh, he's going to Luke, right? So when I got my paper and they said that, I felt the same way. Like, God, what did I do?
Right.
Why am I going? Why am I going there? Like, it's got to be what this is where they sending me. You'd
Yeah.
be
So
devastated.
that's a good point because just so we're clear, someone shot at two policemen. Did the policemen get? I shouldn't say policemen nowadays. The two police officers. Sorry, my feminist friends out there. Two police officers were shot at, and did anyone get hurt?
No.
So they want to send you to the worst prison in Ohio for 15 years, even though no one got hurt. And I understand the police thing, and I kind of
Right. It's
see
just
that.
like I said, it's
Yeah,
just the it's just the charge, you
yeah,
know.
right,
It's
right,
just
right.
that when they classify you, they just going off your charge. You know, they may not read into it. They don't know nothing. They just know what your charges is, and your charges dictate basically where you're going.
So let's talk a little bit about the prison culture, which is one of my things too. I mean, we send people into prison, and all we're doing is making worse prison criminals. I
Hey,
mean,
that's why I said
it's
you sit in
ridiculous. But once again, on a high level, people don't care about criminals. They don't
no,
care
they
what
don't.
happened to you in prison. They don't
Exactly.
care
Nobody.
if you get out and they made you a worse criminal because they
Nope.
got police to send you back.
Right. Nobody.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like, you know, because I've been out for a little while. But back when they first sent me, prison
Uh-huh.
was just what it was. It was a punishment, you know. They try to disguise it with the words rehabilitation and corrections, you know, like you went in there and they turned you in the right direction, but that's not what it was. You know, you go in there and it felt like you was stuck back in time because the whites is over here, the Mexicans is over here, and the blacks are here, you know, and
So they
it's
segregate the prison,
literally.
and I'm assuming it's for safety reasons. I'm assuming.
Well, of
So the prison.
course, you know, of course.
Okay.
I always tell dudes, you know, white dudes, if you go to prison, you gonna be an Aryan Brotherhood. They gonna make you join. First off, you know, you wouldn't have a choice.
Right. Right.
You know,
For your own
so
protection, you're gonna have
right,
to choose a side. Your
exactly.
side.
That's
Okay.
your side. You better get with your side because you know.
And I could flip this either way, but since you brought up the Aryan Brotherhood, let's suppose I'm a white guy, come into prison, and I don't want to join the Aryan Brotherhood. I'm not going to join it no matter what they tell me, no matter
Well,
what
don't
they
worry,
do.
you going to PC. You either gonna be in PC or eventually you gonna buckle because it's gonna be enough people taking your shit and fucking with you that you know. I mean,
Yeah. The common
or you
sense
go
going to
kill
say,
somebody.
right,
You know, that's
right.
like your next best thing. You know, I mean, back then it was. You know, I mean,
Okay.
prison is brutal. You know, you could kill each other
Yeah,
and who cares? You know, y'all prisoners.
right.
I
Y'all
mean,
criminal.
the person family may care, but the general public ain't gonna give a fuck.
Yeah.
You know,
So you mentioned PC. I should
protective custody.
protect. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so uh, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. What was your very first day and night in prison like?
Uh, it was.
Go ahead.
I mean, I don't even know if I slept for my first couple of days. I don't know if anybody does. You know, because there's so much going on and so much to take in. You know, so you know you constantly up. You're wondering. You know, it's like it's a whole new world. You know, it's a world inside of a world. You know,
Right,
but it's like stuck back in the day, at least with the race thing. You know.
right. And I told our audience we're gonna talk with you and share your experience, and then we're going to talk about the system and ideas for reforming it and making it better. And it's going to be two parts. So we're coming up to the last few minutes of our first part here. But I'll end our first half of this interview with a question, a couple questions. What was your lowest moment uh, in prison, and what was the worst thing that happened to you? Might be the same answer, but describe your lowest moment.
Well, my mom died while I was in there, and you know, I just couldn't believe it. You know, that's something that throws you right there because you don't think your parents go die, right? You know, but my mom died, and that you know that really affected me a lot. You know, because you know she never got a chance to see me free. You know, I never got a chance to see her, so that was you know that had me at you know my lowest. You know, and I mean from that
Yeah,
point on, it was you know It was
Right.
downhill after, after she died. I
Right.
just didn't. I mean, I already didn't care in there, but I really didn't care after that. I guess my lowest point is when I tried to kill myself. I was in solitary, in isolation. Back then you could go to isolation from 6 months to 5 years. You know, and most of the time when they put you in isolation, you come out worse, way worse, if you come out at all. With any kind of sense. Because it. But
Yeah.
so I was in isolation, and man, the human, I think, I came to the conclusion, I don't think humans is made to be by theirself,
Yep.
not.
So here's the thing. We're gonna start our second half with you trying to kill yourself. I'd say it sound cold, but you and I, we know how to talk to each other.
Yeah,
We're gonna start that. But let's end this, help me understand, and I kind of understand. So how old were you when you first started experiencing the foster care system?
6.
6. So that says to me that you were not around your mom except for the first 6 years,
That was
basically.
it.
I mean, that was it. And you also indicated that she was a drug addict.
Yep.
Yep. However, when she died, that impacted you a lot. And a lot of times, what I tell people, because I was a foster parent actually. So what struck me out of many things is that no matter what mom and dad did or my experience there, I want to be with my mom and dad, and I
Yeah, it's
love them.
natural.
It's natural. It is. It is. It is. It
Even no
is.
matter how horrific you had it, you may think your
Yep.
parents was
Yes.
horrific.
It
But
is.
your
It is.
natural instinct is, I still love my parents. I
Right.
understand they did a lot of horrible things, and I didn't
Right.
agree with them either. But
Right.
that's my mom.
Yep. And a
I don't
lot of
know.
people don't understand that. And I also have kind of respected the fact that once again, I think it's natural, especially young men, and I guess ladies too. A young man gonna want to be around his real dad
Yep.
and going to want to be with his real dad. Uh, and so, ladies and gentlemen, my guest Ramon had some work duties to take care of, and so we're going to end our first half of the interview here. As you can see, the young man has a career. He has a great attitude of what he's been after all he's been through. But we're going to challenge him a little bit, and I've already mentioned to him, look, Ramon, most of the people in jail say they were innocent. Why should we believe you? We'll pick it up from there. He was talking about the importance of connecting with your natural parents. We'll pick up there and talk a little bit more of what he's doing now and how he overcame everything and how he had the strength and courage to just do what he does. And like I say, I know the young man, and he's just an impressive young man so far. So that's the first half of our interview, people. We will be back next week with the second half. Once again, we're going to wrap up his whole prison experience. We're going to ask him, why should we believe that he didn't do it? Because everybody's saying it. So we'll get into all of that for our next interview, and let you see how this young man overcame everything. So thanks. Tune in again next week. We're going to continue this interview with Mr. Ramon Nicholson, fostered in prison. And in spite of it all, he's living a great life now, and I'm proud of it. Thanks, Ramon, and we will talk to you next week. And enjoy the rest of your day, and keep smiling.